In this video, we will try some examples of using CODAP for simple graphing. So when you come to the front page of CODAP, you can see an options of sample CODAP data sets. And when you open it, then you will see a list of sample data sets with different categories. And the one I'm going to demonstrate here is the one about school and children information. So when you open the data set, you will find, so you can find the introduction here to tell you the background of this data set. This is a very simple one, and actually it includes some information about a group of school children. You can see in the table, okay, and the values of the data. It includes age of the children, and then the weight and height. And they also group into two categories of female and male. Actually, you can click this button to collapse all groups. Then you can see this just two big groups. And when you click open individual ones, then you can see, for example, here are the set for data for females, or you can close it and then expand another set for males. And so it will make it easier for you to go through a big data set. But actually, the sex here is just another variable. So if you drag it back to the main part of the table, here, let's say, next to the index, okay, then it will go back to a more normal kind of tables of data, right, where the sex, female and male, is just another variables among the others. But this is a categorical variables. If you want to move it back, then you just drag this variable back to the left, right? And then you will see hierarchy here, right? For some simple demonstration, I will now put the sex variable within the main table, okay? So here you can now see that we have basically ages, weights, and heights, and then sex of a group of students. Okay, so this is a graph. And you can always close it and then drop another new one here. This is a new graph, right? And when you start a new graph, you will see the points scattered randomly in the window. This is not a scatter point, right? The points are really randomly put on the graphing window. If you click on any dots, then you will see the information of individual case. So you can see this corresponding to the case 124, for example. Okay. Now, you can now choose different variables for the axis in order to form a graph. So for example, you click below, then you can see the choices, or age, height, and weight. Now I display. So I now put the points according to the age on the horizontal axis. Okay. And you can also remove it and give it back to a random graph. Okay. Or you can also drag the variable here from the table into the graph in the x or the y-axis. So this will give you the same dot plot about the ages of the students. So you can see their ages around from 12 to below 18, something like this. Each dot representing one student, and they are put on this number line. Now I can put it below or simply close it if you don't need it, okay? And then you can easily create another one later. Or you can leave it here for later use. Now I can add another graph. I just open another blank graph again. And now I display the height of the students. So here's the height of the students on one axis. And you can also display the weight of the student on another axis. Then you will have a scatter plot. Okay? And you can also combine with another graph. For example, I would like to see how the younger ones distribute in this scatter plot, or maybe the older children. Okay, you can see the separately the highlighted color. Okay, and then now you can select them. Okay, so this instead of displaying two variable, we will now go back to the one variable case. Okay, so I can just remove this one, and then I can see the height of the students. displayed on a number line, right? And which can also drag to change the axis if you like, or maybe enlarge a certain part, or if you want to display more closely, right? Or you can get back, yeah, to your original one. Let's say something here. Now this is what we call a dot plot. Within the dot plot, you can also choose to display the median, mean. For example, here is the median, here is the mean, and you can put the mouse there to see the values of the mean, and also put the median. The median is quite close to it, right? And you can also demonstrate what happened if you change the data. For example, if I select this group of data and try to drag it to the right, then you can see the mean can be quite obviously affected, but not the median. Okay? And you can just release it, and the point will go back to the original position. You can, of course, also drag individual points. In some smaller data set, you can also demonstrate how the change of the mean and median will be affected by just dragging a single point. Okay? But this data set is rather big, so you may not see the change immediately. Okay? And let's say you can now take away this, or maybe you can display the mean and the standard deviation. Right? And this will show you the standard deviation. And similarly, if you select one group of data and then drag it, then you'll see the change in the standard deviation as well. And you can also show the box plot above this data set. Okay, so this is the box plot, and you can select the different quartiles, okay, by clicking on the data on the box plot. If you don't want to show the dots at the same time, then you can change the transparencies or the size of the points. Okay. For example, you can reduce it, then it looks like the points are hidden now, or you can make it bigger, or maybe change the color, right, if you like. Okay. So this is the dot plot of the height of the students. Now I make another graph. Also display the height of the students. But this time I will turn the dots into groups in beans. Beans here simply different classes or groups. Okay. So you click to select it, then they will be grouped into different sections, 50 to 55, 55 to 60 inches. Okay, so you can change the size of this grouping by dragging the boundary. Then it is now distributed in the smaller groups. Okay, or you can change it directly. The group bin width. Okay, you can put it back to 5, and then to align with certain value. Right. So instead of showing individual dots, you may also turn it into bars. I fuse the dots into bars. That will look like an ordinary histogram. Okay, and you can still change the bin width. That means the or what we call the class width of the individual groups. Okay, and or adjust it numerically. Right, maybe you want it to be 2 inches for each group, and then you can also specify the alignment. Okay, that will give you a histogram. And below, you can compare it, or you may have to drag the axis a little bit to make it comparable. So you basically have the same dot plot and the histogram put together. And for the dot plot, you can see the individual points. Right? But for the histogram, you can see the effect of grouping them together. But when you click on the individual point, you can still still see individual cases. Right? So that is one student, which is being represented somewhere in this rectangle or in this bar. Okay. And at the same time, you can also display this dot plot. And maybe I close the box plot first. Okay. Into two groups. So if you put the sex category here on the left axis, actually it can be considered as a new variables, okay, with just two values of category, females and male, but it now split it into two separate dot plot, and it can also have their own box plot. You can display the box plot here for comparison, right? So you can now see the difference between the male and female, okay, distribution. And this can also lead to some discussions about the differences between the male group and the female group. And back to the ages, right, selection, I can still make use of this selection below, okay? And let's say I want to see the younger student, then I may select somewhere here for the younger group. Then you can see the distributions is highlighted in the graph as well. Similarly, I can select the older group of students and see the changes in their distribution, right? And finally, you may also actually put the age axis, age variable in the middle of the graph to treat as a third variable. Now in this case, then you will see more directly. Yeah, now change the axis to align the two axes. Okay, now you can see the age is used as the color legend, right? So the use it to classify the student, and you can also click on this to look at individual age categories. Now, by selecting individual age categories, you can also choose to display whether move here, whether you want to hide certain cases or display only the selected cases. Right? Maybe I now select this only this selected cases. Okay. So in the graph above, I may choose to select only certain cases. Display. Okay, now I go back to the show all cases. And now I select also the measures for selection. Okay, show measures for selection. This will help you to identify individual groups. For example, the first one, it is youngest group, right? Then you can see the box plot of these two. And you can also notice that the females actually have a wider range, okay, compared with the males one for the younger ages. And if you move further, right, then you can see how they also change accordingly. Actually, for this age group, the female tends to be taller than the male students, right? Although the range is not so big as well. Okay, now I move forward to the other older group. Now it becomes obvious that the male students becomes taller in this middle age group. And then I further scroll to the right. Okay, you can see the more obvious differences now. And then the oldest group. Okay, this will help you to distinguish maybe individual groups for more detailed comparison, right? And basically, each graph can host more than two variables in this way, right? And allows you to relate different variables in the same graph, right? So that is a rather flexible use of the graphic tools in this environment, and particularly useful for exploratory data analysis, right? Instead of simply presenting any final result, okay? And so maybe you can come to this page of CODAP and open any, maybe I can go back to the previous page. I remember that we have a number of different sample variables. Just click inside and then explore on your own, and at the same time try to experience the basic statistical tool provided by the CODAP platform. So this is the end of my demonstration here.